Micah chapter 5. If you remember last week, Micah's 1 through 3 was very hard. It was very much a message of condemnation. It was a message of judgment. And they went through it. They started off, it was very similar. You look at all the different personalities of the different minor prophets, and you do see some kind of intricacies. You see some areas where they're different, but there's also a lot that's the same. There's a general format that applies to most of them. While they have their own themes, Hosea, if you remember, was largely the theme of a husband to wife. Okay, Micah, it doesn't really take the husband-wife thing, but it does pronounce judgment against idolatry. But you still have the same basic formula. You have this message of judgment. These people have turned away, and the message of the prophets coming and saying, this is what God says to you. You have turned away, you have sinned, you have broken the covenant that I made with you, that I made with your forefathers. And because of that, judgment is coming. You've broken it. I told you from the very beginning, if you follow me, these are the ways I will bless you. But if you turn away from me, then this is what is going to happen. I'm going to take the land from you. I'm going to take your rest from you. And so most of the minor prophets say, you've broken that. God's going to do exactly what he said he was going to do from the beginning. But there's also always a message of hope. And for some of the minor prophets, it's a tiny little message of hope. If you remember, Joel was kind of just this really quick one. Okay, Amos was a pretty quick one. Micah is actually more hope than it is judgment. And now it was a hard 3 chapters. But then we have 4 chapters where God says, through Micah, and he says, yeah, this is going to happen, but I'm not done with my people. And he uses the term that's common through the minor prophets of a remnant. The idea that judgment is going to come, and it will be painful, but I always keep a remnant for myself. If you remember the story of Elijah, where Elijah was crying out, and if you remember, he was running from Ahab and Jezebel, and he's chased off into the woods right after everything that happened at Mount Carmel, where we had this great victory, where God shows up literally in fire, and he has this incredible victory over the prophets of Baal, but then he leaves from that place, and he goes in the wilderness, and he's overcome with this depression. Okay, by the way, I get hope from that. Okay? The prophets were not immune to frustration and depression. And so Elijah goes off into the wilderness and he cries out to God. And do you remember what he says? He says, they have murdered your prophets and I'm the only one left. Elijah thinks he's alone. He thinks he stands alone as the prophet of God as he is actively hunted by Ahab and Jezebel. And God speaks to Elijah and he says, you're not the only one, for I have reserved for myself a remnant who have not bowed the knee to Baal. You may feel alone, but you're not alone. I keep this group for myself. Here in Micah, we have this message of judgment, and it is going to be painful. We have the advantage of looking back on it. And we know Assyria is about to start its march southeast-ish. Okay, and he's going to come. And Assyria, remember we're talking to Judah, Assyria is going to conquer Israel. That's going to be a dark day for Israel, Judah. It's going to conquer Israel and take the captives of Israel into Assyria and spread them out and bring people from the other nations and bring them into Israel. It was a very clever way of making sure that they never recover. And so Assyria is going to come in and they're going to win this victory. They're going to defeat them because of Israel's sin. And then they're going to turn on Judah. And God is going to protect them because we're going to move away from the current king and we're going to come to King Hezekiah, who is a righteous king. And is going to cry out for deliverance to Yahweh, the one true God. And God will deliver them. But then Hezekiah will pass. They will turn back to their ways. And in will come the new powerhouse, okay, being Babylon. Babylon will come in and will defeat them. And will take those exiles and bring them to Babylon. But they're going to remain. They're not going to be wiped out like the northern kingdom was. They're going to remain a remnant. Okay, by the way, and God uses that terrible incident of judgment to bring us some of the most incredible testimonies of God's love and faithfulness. Okay? Most of them come in the book of Daniel. Daniel in the lion's den, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, all, the fiery furnace, the statue, all those incredible stories that we have, testimonies of God's faithfulness we get as a result of this judgment. And so God is going to keep a remnant that are going to remain holy to him, and that he's eventually going to bring back to the city of Jerusalem, that are going to rebuild. So we have Micah chapter 5. Micah chapter 5. Micah has prophesied against the leaders of Israel, against the prophets of Israel, proclaimed judgment for how they've done it. But then he talks about the last days. Remember, we get a little bit of whiplash here, because Micah is going to jump from the immediate future, and in the last chapter is the immediate future of judgment, a general future of what he's going to do through the exile, and a far future being in the last days. Okay, and so he skips around a little bit, and he's going to do that a little bit here too. Okay, Micah chapter 5. Would someone read 1 through 6?
Now muster yourselves in troops, daughters of troops. They have laid siege against us. With a rod they will smite the judge of Israel on the cheek. But as for you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, too little to be among the clans of Judah, from you one will go forth for me to be ruler in Israel. His goings forth are from long ago, from the days of eternity. Therefore he will give them up until the time when she who is in labor has borne a child. Then the remainder of his brethren will return to the sons of Israel. And he will arise and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And they will remain, because at that time he will be great to the ends of the earth. This one will be our peace. When the Assyrian invades our land, when he tramples on our citadels, then we will raise against him 7 shepherds and 8 leaders of men. They will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod at its entrances, and he will deliver us from the Assyrian when he attacks our land and when he tramples our territory.
Great, thank you. What version are you reading?
NASB.
NASB. Verse 1. Anybody have something? Go ahead and read verse 1 again.
Now muster yourselves in troops, daughters of troops.
Okay. Muster yourself in troops, daughters of troops. Anybody have something that's different? And in fact, some of these versions are quite a bit different.
King James. Now this is King James.
Sorry, say that again.
King James.
Okay.
Now gather thyself in troops, O daughter of troops. We have laid siege against us, they shall smite the judge of Israel with a rod upon the cheek.
Okay. Anybody have something besides the troops comment? Okay, everybody in here is using one of those.
Yeah, I don't think I had troops in mind.
What's yours say?
CSB. Now, a daughter who is under attack, you slash yourself in grief. A siege is set against us. They are striking the judge of Israel on the cheek with a rod.
Right. So we have this version, okay? So he says, now rise, daughter of troops, okay? Her says, now daughter who is under attack. Okay, so the idea is, and there's actually debate among scholars of who God is speaking through Micah to. Okay, some people think, and it's not even, a lot of these are pretty close, it's actually the opposite. Is God speaking to the Assyrians, or is God speaking to the people of Judah? Remember, if I use the term Israel, because we're talking about true Israel, okay? Talking to the people of Israel or people of Judah. And some say, and it's not super important because we're going to get the gist of it here. Who he's addressing here is not especially important. But what he's saying is, daughter who is under attack. Okay, that translation says he's talking to his people. Okay? If he's talking to the people of Assyria or the attackers, the idea is that he's speaking to them and saying, okay, gather your troops together and bring it. But the idea is not really that verse, but where we are going to go with it. Okay, my version says, now daughter who is under attack, you slash yourself in grief. Go ahead and read the next part.
The rest of.
Go ahead and read. Go ahead and start at 1. Yeah. At the beginning.
Now muster yourself in troops, daughter of troops. They have laid siege against us. With a rod they will smite the judge of Israel on the cheek.
Okay. Now muster yourself in troops, daughter of troops. They have set a siege against us. The idea is battle is coming. War is coming. You are about to be under siege. which we know is true because we've studied this history. We're not going to go back and talk about Hezekiah and Sennacherib again. If you weren't here, you can go to, I think, 2 Kings, and you can read that again. But it's an incredible story of God's faithfulness. But the idea is these forces are coming against you. Now, when you go into the military, and I'm going to bring a little bit of military stuff in here, the way the military is nothing super top secret. I can live stream this, okay? Everybody knows it if you're in the military. But you're broken up into different sections, okay? And in active duty, they're called S shops, okay? S1 is personnel, okay? S4 is supply. S6 is technology. But there's a very important one, okay? Technology says, okay, we're going out, we're going to have to get our radios together. S1 says, okay, we need to keep track of who's coming, who's going, where they all are. There's a very important one that never, ever gets a break. It's S2, intelligence, okay? And by the way, if you want to know what's going on in the world, find somebody in S2, because that's constantly what they're doing. They're weighing threats. Okay, and we would go to them and, hey, the rumors are going around that we might be deploying. You know who you talk to? S2. You go to S2, Intel, and you say, hey, what's going on in this section of the world? What's going on in this country? What do you think the likelihood is that we're going to have to go? Because Intel's job is to keep track on pretty much the whole world, or at least the hot button issues. And they do everything from that to the likelihood that people are going to deploy to the weather. Okay, they literally study the weather. Okay, when you're getting ready to go in the field and we're training in Fort Bragg, S2 gives a brief. And it's the most boring part of the brief. They'd be like, it's gonna be sunny. Okay, probably between 60 and 70 degrees. Okay, when they go on this path, they're gonna pass over a creek. Okay, there are roads that go here, but when you're going overseas, they're your best friend. Okay, we're going here, and there are these forces that we know are in the area. And there's a high likelihood that we're going to get attacked, okay? And as a chaplain, we're listening for the dark parts of that. We're trained, okay, listen to S2, because you know what we're listening for? When we're going to have casualties, okay? Us and the medics are kind of on the same page there. Like, we want to know when there's going to be a mass cow because we need to be there to care for the soldiers, okay? Because it's so important. I went on a long tangent, but the idea is, knowing that's coming is vitally important. Here, God says, you better gather your troops because they're about to lay siege to you. You're about to face this trial. Now, I want you to think about that. The people of Judah, when they hear this message and say, gather your troops for a siege is set against us, what is their natural response to that? I mean, we do it now.
Panic.
Panic might be it. Okay. They might blow it off if they don't believe it. Yeah, they have a couple options. And really, in not thinking this well through, there's really 3 of them. You can ignore it, you can panic, or you can prepare. Okay? Think about that. We were at, our kids went to a private school back in Fayetteville, and one time they all of a sudden got a call from the police saying that there was a possibility of a shooter situation. What did they do? You can ignore it, you can panic, or you can prepare. And they locked down the school. I went to pick up my kids, and there were like 8 cop cars, like in the parking lot, just making sure all the kids could get picked up well. They prepared for that. And so these people, God speaks through Micah and says, a siege is set against you. And they have a choice on how they're going to respond to that. They are striking the judge of Israel on the cheek with a rod. They're about to come, and judge can also be interpreted as king of Israel. It says they're going to come and they're going to bruise the king, bruise the judge, bruise the leader of Israel. Now, what are they referring to? Some commentaries or scholars would say that they're talking about Jesus. If you remember the passage, strike the shepherd and the sheep will be scattered. It's possible, but it doesn't really fit this. Most likely, it's talking about what's going to happen later with the last king of Judah. His name would be Zedekiah. Zedekiah, and someday, I don't know when. Someday we'll get to that point. But Zedekiah was the last king of Judah before Babylon came and destroyed him. And he revolted against Babylon, and they gathered him. They caught him trying to escape out of the city. They put him in chains. They gouged out his eyes. Sorry, not in that order. First, they made him watch while they executed his children. And then they gouged out his eyes. And then they exported him to Babylon, where he lived out his days. Debatable about how long that was. Some people think it was short. Some people think it was longer. But he died in Babylon. Okay, it's a pretty strong strike with the rod, isn't it? Okay, it's a dark one. It's a hard one. I don't teach this lesson with youth, okay, or children. But we'll see if Awana wants to go through that section. Okay. That was a joke. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go be out that night.
Yeah. Okay. But he's talking about the siege that is coming against his people. They are striking the judge of Israel on the cheek with a rod. And again, that's symbolic. It's not literally he's getting hit with the rod. It's the idea of they're attacking the leader, and he is going to pay the punishment. He's going to pay the price for this. Okay. Did I just say this was going to be a happy chapter? Not so far, huh?
No.
Verse 2. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, you are small among the clans of Judah. One will come from you to be ruler over Israel for me. His origin is from antiquity, Okay? Anybody, does that sound familiar to anybody? That passage is actually quoted somewhere else in Scripture. Anybody know where? I know y'all didn't sign up for the pop test, did you? Pop quiz. Matthew chapter 2. Okay? Jesus is being born in Bethlehem, which we know. But Herod, these magi come to King Herod and they say, hey, we've heard that the person to be born, the king of the Jews, is being born. And he says, oh, really? Well, he doesn't say to them. He calls in his scribes and teachers of the law. And he says, where is this king supposed to be born? And you know what they say? Bethlehem Ephrathah, you are small among the clans of Judah. One will come from you to be ruler over Israel for me. They quote that exact passage. And by the way, there's no debate. They say this is a prophecy about the coming Messiah. When we hear that he's about to be born, he's supposed to be born in Bethlehem. Now think about the irony here. Ignore, however many, years or decades of Christmas presentations and Christmas sermons you've gotten that talk about, oh, little town of Bethlehem. Okay? You can go out on the street and be like, where was Jesus born? And you run the Bible Belt, most people can probably tell you Bethlehem. Rewind a little bit. What is Bethlehem? It's a tiny little no-name town. In fact, Bethlehem only has one claim to fame at this point. You know what it is? David was born there. Rewind back the story of David. Saul has sinned, and he's turned away, and God says through Samuel, I'm going to take the kingdom from you. I'm going to give it to someone after my own heart. And he sends Samuel to this little no-name town of Bethlehem. We know it's no name because if you go back to Joshua, when they're going through and they're conquering, they don't even waste their time mentioning Bethlehem. You don't know that Bethlehem exists until David. And so they go to this little no-name town of Bethlehem where King David was born. For me, I was thinking about what would that be like. And I was thinking about, where we live. We live in Sanford. And we're talking about if you were to ask anybody and say, name a city in North Carolina, they're going to say Raleigh. They're going to say, if you're military, Fayetteville. Okay? There are these places, Charlotte. Places with airports, these huge places that everybody knows they exist. Anybody know where Stedman is? Okay? We get about half. Stedman is like an hour away. Okay? Half the people in this room live an hour from Stedman and does not know it exists. Okay? That's not a critique, but that's like in my mind. And you can probably name a place that's a half hour away from me, and I didn't know it exists. Do I have time for that story? When I first came and started doing church at my last church, and I was the associate pastor, and every Sunday I would read a mission moment and talk about some missionaries and some pastors and stuff like that, and we would pray for them at the beginning of church. I am not from the area, okay? And I look at this place, and they talk about these church planters in this strange town called Fuquay-Varina. Okay? I don't even know how I pronounced it. I didn't even know it was close. I'm thinking this is someplace like Western North Carolina. This is in Eastover, which is the other side of Fayetteville, okay? So I'm the only one there who doesn't know Fuquay Varina exists. Okay? And so I read this, I talk about these missionaries, and I think I called it something like Fuquay. I don't know what I said, but I slaughtered it. And everybody starts laughing, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that was like a half hour that direction. Okay? But that's what Bethlehem is. Bethlehem is this no-name town that nobody really cares about until this one child is born there named David. And even then, David is the claim to fame. If anyone were to say, where's the Messiah going to come from? You'd probably name a lot of places. You'd probably say Jerusalem. You know what you wouldn't say? Bethlehem. But God speaks through Micah, and he says, the siege is coming, and the king is going to be hit with a rod. He's going to pay that price. He's going to face that judgment. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah. Ephrathah is another word. It's the district that Bethlehem exists in. Okay? Bethlehem means, if you remember, you're going to do a little bit of Hebrew class. Bethel means house of God. Bethlehem means house of bread. Okay, now that's super significant for us. Some people try to read into it about Jesus. Maybe, maybe not. Ephrathah means a place of plenty. It means talking about the produce coming out of it. So if you ever wondered what that means, Bethlehem Ephrathah, it's just the district that it lives in. That it lives in. Bethlehem doesn't live. The place where it exists. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, you are small among the clans of Judah, but one will come from you to be ruler over Israel for me. God is going to bring a king who is going to be born in this, I'm not going to sing, a little town of Bethlehem. He's going to be born in Bethlehem, who is going to reign for him. Now that's great, right? Up until this point, we have this idea. What are we picturing? Or what are the readers picturing? They're picturing another David. They're picturing someone from David's line to follow in David's footsteps. Partly because God promised that you would bring one through the line of David. But notice, God separates this. This is not just going to be another David. What does he say? His origin is from antiquity, from eternity. Anybody have something else that it says there? What does it say?
From ancient times.
From ancient times? And it doesn't go to, just from ancient times?
Yeah.
Okay?
From old, from everlasting.
From old, from everlasting. Anything else?
Long ago, from the days of eternity.
From long ago, from the days of eternity. Okay? The idea is, okay, and they translators have a hard time like explaining this in English. And even the Hebrew writers kind of wrestle with it. The idea is the idea of eternity. Okay? And if you were to go math, the only way that we have to describe it is math. We have a symbol. It's a sideways 8. Okay? It's infinity. It means it goes forever back and forever forward. It never ends. In fact, it's completely philosophical. Because if you say, we don't have anything else like that. And don't say pi. Okay? We don't really have anything else that goes forever back and forever forward. But here it says, this ruler is not just going to be born and going to be rule. He's not simply going to be another David. His origin is from antiquity, from eternity. The idea is he has always existed. He always will exist. But he's going to be born in Bethlehem. Which is why when later on the teachers of law would read this, they don't think that this is just some other king that he's going to raise up. This is Messiah. This is messianic. This is someone sent from God of David's line that is going to rule, whose kingdom will not end. Therefore, he will abandon them until the time when she who is in labor has given birth. Then the rest of his brothers will return to the people of Israel. Notice it's not happening now. There's a time period here. There's a time where God's people need to face this judgment, but the time is coming when God is going to send his Messiah through Bethlehem. He will stand and shepherd them in the strength of Yahweh and the majestic name of Yahweh his God. They will live securely, for then his greatness will extend to the ends of the earth. There will be peace. Now remember what I said, we're jumping around a little bit, right? Okay? Because some of this has been fulfilled, hasn't it? Okay? Even the teachers of the law, the scribes, looked at it and said, oh, the Messiah is coming. He's going to be born in Bethlehem in fulfillment of the prophecy of Micah. But has all of this been fulfilled yet? Okay. If I say, he will stand and shepherd them in the strength of Yahweh, you could say that Jesus did that, the first time, in his first coming. I think it's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think that is the fulfillment of what Micah was describing. We've gone back to the last days. We've gone to the second coming of Christ when he will shepherd the nations. He will stand and shepherd them in the strength of Yahweh and the majestic name of Yahweh his God. They will live securely, for then his greatness will extend to the ends of the earth. Okay? They will live securely. That's part of the reason I don't think that this has been fulfilled yet. We haven't had a time when Israel lived securely, including when Jesus walked on the earth. They were still under Rome's dominion. They still had to answer to Rome. You can tell that because even though they wanted to kill Jesus, who did they go to? Pilate. They didn't even have that authority on their own. Israel has not had what is being described in Micah up until the present day. Since Solomon. They will live securely, for then his greatness will extend to the ends of the earth. There will be peace. When Assyria invades our land, when it marches against our fortresses, we will raise against it 7 shepherds, even 8 leaders of men. They will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with a drawn blade. Okay, now he's being figurative here. Because remember, Assyria is about to come, right? Assyria is about to come and wage war against Israel, then turn on Judah. But I don't believe he's talking about literal Assyria right here. Because remember, we're jumping back and forth. We're still in the end times. So who is God speaking through Micah about? Assyria is more of imagery. Okay? This is what I believe. Assyria is imagery. Because Assyria is not going to be the main foe against the people of Judah. Actually, it's going to be Babylon. But Assyria is the threat now. When he says Assyria, he's talking about the enemies of his people. These people that are going to wage war, but the Messiah is going to come. He's going to be born in Bethlehem. He is going to rule. The nations are going to be at peace. He's going to rule the land. He's going to shepherd them. And when Assyria invades our land, meaning the enemies of God's people invade our land, when it marches against our fortresses, we'll raise against it 7 shepherds, even 8 leaders of men. Now that's a very peculiar phrase, okay? And you actually find that a lot in Scripture, and that it actually has its name, okay? It's called, I forget the actual term that it uses at the end. It's like the law or something like that, but it's called the X+1. I'm going to say system. I don't think it's system, but the X+1 system, okay? It's an element of poetry. If you ever read Proverbs chapter 6, okay? In Proverbs chapter 6, Solomon writes and he says, 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. Okay? Now that's weird. Why 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him? It's called the X+1 theory. And the idea is it's an element of poetry. Solomon is about to list 7 things that the Lord finds detestable. Are they the only 7 things that the Lord finds detestable? Of course not. Okay, I can look at that list and find something else from Scripture, right? But what he's doing is he's giving a poetic version to talk about, hey, these things the Lord hates, and it's mostly focused on social justice. It's focused on how you treat the people around you, when you mistreat the poor. The Lord finds that detestable. Here it says, when Assyria comes in, we will raise against it 7 shepherds, even 8 leaders of men. Now again, we're talking last times. Do I believe that literally 7 shepherds, 8 leaders of men are going to step up? I don't really think so. What he's talking about is there will be these leaders who step up and lead and shepherd and guide the nation of Israel. When the enemies come, they will have leadership who step up, and they will shepherd the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with a drawn blade. Anybody heard the name Nimrod before? And I don't mean as an insult. If anybody's called you Nimrod, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay? I've been called Nimrod. Okay? Anybody know who Nimrod is?
He was the fellow that started the Tower of Babel.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. And if you go back to Genesis 10, you have this genealogy that talks about this man named Nimrod and talks about what a powerful man that he was. Nimrod was the ancestor who founded Assyria, Nineveh, and Babylon. Okay? He was, I think it was the brother of the one named Canaan. Okay? So Canaan is going to kind of have like the majority of it. But who is attacking right now? Assyria, and the next one, Babylon, going back to their ancestor, Nimrod. And so that's what he's talking about, the land of Nimrod. They will shepherd the land of Assyria, how? With the sword. The land of Nimrod with a drawn blade. So he will rescue us from Assyria when it invades our land, when it marches against our territory. Now remember, they're about to face judgment. They're about to be overrun. Israel's going to be overrun by Assyria. They're going to be overrun by Babylon. But we're looking forward. Remember, God's saying, I still have a plan for them. And in that day, anyone who stands against my people will be defeated. Because I am going to lead them. I'm going to direct them. Someone read, because verse 7 is going to begin with then. So we're continuing in the future. We're getting last days views here. Someone read 7 through 11.
And the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people, as a dew from the Lord, as the showers upon the grass that tarrieth not for man, nor waiteth for the sons of men. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles in the midst of many people, as a lion among the beasts of the forest, as a young lion among the flocks of sheep, who, if he go through, both treadeth down and teareth in pieces, and none can deliver. Thine hand shall be lifted up upon thine adversaries, and all thine enemies shall be cut off. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord, that I will cut off thy horses out of the midst of thee, and I will destroy thy chariots. And I will cut off the cities of thy land, and throw down all thy strongholds. And I will cut off witchcrafts out of thine hand, and thou shalt have no more soothsayers.
Go ahead and read to the end. We're only 3 verses.
Thy graven images also will I cut off, and thy standing images out of the midst of thee. And thou shalt no more worship the work of thine hands. And I will pluck up thy groves out of the midst of thee. So will I destroy thy cities, and I will execute vengeance in anger and fury upon the heathen, such as they have not heard.
Then, so when this Assyria marches in and God gives them victory and he raises up these shepherds and these leaders who are going to stand up and they're going to rule Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with a drawn blade. He will rescue us, being God, from Assyria when it invades our land, when it marches against our territory. Then the remnant of Jacob will be among many peoples. His version said the Gentiles. I want you to think about that. Where do the people of Israel or people of Judah live right now in Micah's time? Not right now. I'm talking like in Micah.
They live in the promised land that was given to
They live in Judah.
Judah.
Yeah, they live in the promised land. But in that day, in those last times, where are they going to live? They're going to be scattered, right? They're going to be among the nations. Where do the Jewish people live now? Everywhere. They live everywhere.
There's as many in New York as there are in
Absolutely.
Israel.
You can say Israel, but yeah, you can find places where there's actually more Jewish people than in actual Israel. They have been scattered among the nations. By the way, we're in partial fulfillment here. Okay? Then the remnant of Jacob will be among many peoples, like dew from the Lord, like showers on the grass, which do not wait for anyone or linger for mankind. It's like the dew, okay? You go to walk out and the dew is on the grass. Where's the dew? It's just scattered. It's everywhere, every blade of grass, okay? You can't find someone unless your name's Gideon. You can't find a place where there is no dew, Okay, that's a Bible joke if anybody got that. Okay, but the dew is just scattered across the grass. And that's how the people of Israel are going to be. God's people, the people of Judah, are just going to be scattered among the Gentile nations. Then the remnant of Jacob will be among the nations, among many peoples, like a lion among animals of the forest, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep, which tramples and tears as it passes through, and there's no one to rescue them. Notice he's doing a polar opposite of where they are now. Right now, Judah is the victim. They are being overrun. They are pledging allegiance to the most powerful nations, and when one turns against them, they're hoping another will come and save them. Remember, they've reached out. They reached out. Israel was attacking them, and who did they call to? Assyria, come help us. And then Assyria is going to turn on them. Babylon's going to come, and they're going to try to stand up. They're going to fight a little bit, but at the end of the day, they are fighting way out of their weight class. They're the victim. They're going to get pushed around until they're finally defeated and finally led away in exile. And then they're going to be led out. Cyrus, king of Persia, is going to come, and they're going to make their way back. And then are they this powerhouse nation? No. There's all these tiny little nations around that are going to keep on bullying them, who are going to ridicule them while Nehemiah tries to build the wall. They're not this powerhouse nation, but in that day, the people of Israel are going to be scattered around, but they're also going to be brought together. And they're going to move like a lion. They're no longer this, right now they're more like a pigeon. Okay? A little understated. Not right now. Right now they're actually pretty vicious. Okay? But the idea is that they're going to be this force. Then they're going to move around like a lion among the flocks of sheep, which tramples and tears as it passes through, and there's no one to rescue them. Who's them? The nations. The persecutors, the people who are rejecting Israel. Your hand, whose hand? God's. Your hand will be lifted up against your adversaries, and all your enemies will be destroyed. And that day, the Lord's declaration, okay? So God has promised some message of hope for the people of Israel. He says, I'm going to redeem you. I'm going to save you. I'm going to make you back into the powerhouse nation where people are going to look at it and say, man, not only are they, but look at their God. And what is God going to do? See, the people of Israel, this is where they've struggled historically. Because they think, hey, we're going to be the most powerful nation because God's going to bless us. And then we can just still have our idols on the side. We continue to live however we want. But God says, in that day, the Lord's declaration, or thus declares the Lord, I will remove your horses from you and wreck your chariots. Think about that for a second. You're going to be this powerful nation that the nations are going to fear. They're going to be in fear of you, of the power that I'm going to give you. And in that day, I'm going to wreck your chariots and remove your horses. What's the idea behind that? Well, I think where he's getting to, okay, what have the people of Israel always trusted in? David would even say it in Psalm chapter 20. Some trust in horses, some trust in chariots. But who do we trust in? The name of the Lord our God. God is taking away the things that they are trusting in, the things that they're confiding in. And God says, in that day, I am going to take that away from you. I'm going to remove your horses from you and wreck your chariots. I will remove the cities of your land and tear down all your fortresses. The things that people would trust in that day, God says, you're not going to need those things anymore. Think about it. Most of us, we have security systems, okay? We got a dog, okay? We have a tiny little ankle biter, and then we got a big old dog. And our dog, he's a sweetheart, but he's got the meanest bark I've ever heard, okay? And we got him for that reason, because when I was traveling for the military, April loved him. Someone come to the door, okay? If you were thinking about robbing the place, you would think twice.
Just so you know, I won't go to his door.
He's going to mean bark, doesn't he? Okay?
Scared me.
And I don't know what would happen if somebody actually broke in, but I wouldn't want to be on the backside if he gets mean.
Yeah.
Okay? And so that's not what we trust in, but we have these security systems. We have dogs. Some of us have guns, okay? Keep a gun in your closet. And do you keep it loaded? You know, what do you do? And the idea is, if someone were to break in, this is what I would do. And I'm not saying any of that stuff is bad. The people of Judah, they say, we want walls. We want fortresses. We want cities. We want horses. We want chariots. Why? Because when they come, we want to be able to defend ourselves. And God says in that day, you're not going to need it. You're not going to trust in those things because I am the one who protects you. Think of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. You know the really cool and weird thing about sheep? Is they're one of the few animals in the world that have no method of self-defense. Zero. And it doesn't bother them. Right? They don't group together and be like, we need to stay close in case a wolf comes. No, they're idiots. They wander off in the woods, okay? Because whose job is it to keep them safe? It's the shepherd. The Bible doesn't say that we're like a pack of wolves. It doesn't say we're a pack of dogs. It doesn't say we're a horse or a mule. It says we're like sheep. Sheep are at the mercy of the shepherd. This is exactly, he doesn't use that terminology, but he says, in that day, you're not going to need the cities. You're not going to need the fortresses. You're not going to need the horses. You're not going to need the chariots. But God is going to be the one who protects them and cares for them. But also look at what God is going to do. I will remove sorceries from your hands, and you will not have any more fortune tellers. I will remove your carved images and sacred pillars from you, so that you will not bow down to the work of your hands. I will pull up the Asherah poles from among you and demolish your cities. He says, not only am I going to be the one who protects you, but I'm also going to be the one that purifies you. Remember, Micah is literally talking to a city surrounded by idols, worshiping false gods as he speaks. And God says, through Micah, he says, judgment is coming for that, but a day is coming when I'm going to bring the remnant. I'm going to bring them back. I'm going to restore the people of Israel, my chosen people, to the status that they were always meant to be. But make no mistake, in that day, I will remove the idolatry from them. I'm going to take the witchcraft from them. I'm going to remove them from their fortune tellers. They're not going to trust in these physical things for defense, but they're also not going to rely on these spiritual idolatries that they have been doing. Why? Because God is a jealous God, and he will not share his throne with another. He says, I will take you back as my chosen people, but I'm going to remove the Asherah poles. You will not trust in those any longer. I don't share my people. You know, God actually gets a bad rep if you go out in public talking about God's jealousy. But I'm a pretty jealous person too. I don't share my wife with anybody. And I mean that in every vulgar sense of the term, okay? I'm not willing to share her. If a guy comes up and says, you willing to share? Okay? It's going to be no, probably followed by my fist. Okay? Because I don't share that. I am jealous of my wife. Okay? Not that she doesn't hang out with other people, but I don't share my wife. I am her husband. She doesn't get to have another one. That is exactly what God is saying to the people of Israel. He says, you were supposed to be my chosen people. You were to be my bride. I was going to be your husband. You were going to be my people, and I was going to be your God. And you said, yeah, but can't we bring these idols in also? Can't we also trust in these golden calves? Can't we also cut ourselves and sacrifice ourselves for these false gods, for Moloch, for Asherah, for Baal? And God says, no, I don't share my people. I don't share my loved one. In that day, I will take you back as my holy bride. I will take you back as my people. I will provide for you. I will care for you. You won't need to trust in these systems of strength anymore because I'm going to be your God. But in that day, I will not only protect you, but I will purify you. Those things are not welcome in our relationship. I will remove your carved images and sacred pillars from you, so that you will not bow down again to the work of your hands. I will pull up the Asherah poles from among you and demolish those cities. I will take vengeance in anger and wrath against the nations that have not obeyed me. He says, you are going to be back to being my people. And by the way, it talks, remember last chapter, he's going to rule and shepherd the nations as well, but there are still going to be the people who reject God's rule, who reject God's law, who worship the false gods, worship what their hands have made. And he says that day judgment will come on them as well. But for my people, my remnant, I will keep, I will protect, I will care for, I will purify. They're going to be mine. Any questions or comments? A little bit late, not too bad.